Hello, and thank you for joining this session today. My name is Kaylee Johnson, and I work at American Student Assistance. American Student Assistance is a nationally known nonprofit based in Boston, Massachusetts, and our mission is to help students know themselves, know their options, and make informed decisions to achieve their education and their career goals. Today, I'm going to be discussing skills acquisition through entertaining video games, not edutainment. So video games are everywhere and for every purpose. And by this, I mean that games are ubiquitous. The reality of video games today is that they super saturate the market for young consumers. There are so many different ways to play, and video games are used for so many reasons, to the point now where video games are being noted by commentators to be the dominant form of youth culture instead of things like music, for example, compared to past generations. So video games are really where it's at for kids today. So overall, research has demonstrated that 97% of young Americans report playing video games for at least an hour a day. So this is where kids are choosing to spend their time. That speaks to that ubiquity. At the nexus of ubiquity and diversity is gaming platform options. So video games are not just played on consoles and computers anymore. They're also played on mobile devices like smartphones. So kids have so many different options to play across these different device types and platform types. So that kind of feeds into that whole ubiquity of games being everywhere. And finally, with respect to the diversity element alone, video games are played now for so many different reasons. They're played for entertainment, for socialization, to improve mental health, and to escape reality. So this sort of ubiquitous and diverse options surrounding video games reflect the more complex and social nature of video games today. So in order to delve into a little bit more around why kids are playing video games, ASA conducted independent primary research in October of 2020, and we went out and surveyed 513 to 14-year-olds. Now, the sample is weighted on race to make the sample be nationally representative with respect to race and ethnicity. And overall, we found that kids are primarily playing video games for fun. This makes sense, right? So nearly 2/3 of students are playing video games for fun or to relax or escape. So it's 64% in that top bar. We also found that kids are playing video games because they enjoy the creative elements of it. To be creative, you get to do so much in video games, make your characters sometimes or your worlds and explore all these different things. So it really taps into that creativity. We also found that just under half of kids say that they're interested in the narrative and social aspects of gaming. And by that, we mean they play a game because it has an interesting story or experience, according to 44%. And 42% say that they're playing games for socializing, to hang out with their friends or to meet people. So again, that speaks to what I was saying earlier about kind of the nature of games being more social and complex and gaming being done for so many different reasons. Now, a lot of the media narrative around gaming has unfortunately been really negative. And perhaps the most salient example, or one of the first examples, at least that I can recall in my lifetime, was after the Columbine massacre and media linking and exploring the two perpetrators to the video games and violence in those games that they were playing. So it was unsurprising given that sort of media narrative. And even, for example, the Obama administration commissioned a study on gaming and its negative impacts. Again, that's why research to this date has generally focused on the negative impacts of playing video games. Some of those negative impacts you'll see in the table on the right. They're in green in the left side column of that table. The negative impacts are being increased incidences of violent behavior or aggression among video gamers compared to non-video gamers. Similarly, there have been studies that show that gamers have higher levels of depression than non-gamers as well. So you can kind of see that ill impact kind of forming in these two traits. Additionally, there's been research done around the addictive quality of video games. Video games are designed to be addictive. They want you to keep coming back and trying to level up and beat platforms. But nonetheless, there's been studies that show that that kind of behavior ends up being sort of addictive to the exclusion of other things in life. And that can have really detrimental effects on kids when that's all the way that they're spending their time. Then finally, there are still more studies that show that different elements of video gameplay, so for example, violent play, criminal thoughts, for example, these behaviors that are engaged in video games become intrusive thoughts outside of the game and in kids' day-to-day lives. So this is to say, they're going around and then they'll think about elements of that gameplay or have the impulse to engage in the violent behavior or play that they are doing in the game or the criminal activity they're doing in the game in their day-to-day life. And research demonstrates that as they game less and less, those types of intrusive thoughts also drop off. So you see that connection between the intrusion and the increased incidence of video game play. So while there are indeed these negative impacts of playing video games, research has also come around to exploring that gaming can have a positive impact on players. And there's a lot of reason to be encouraged about that. So for example, video games can help gamers to increase their physical skills, their hand-eye coordination, their reaction time, all of that. These things are really important to succeeding in the game, which can absolutely have benefits in real life. As we were saying earlier, kids are interested in playing video games because of creativity. There are also studies that demonstrate increased creativity and open-mindedness with kids who play video games compared to those who don't. So you see the connection between video games and creativity is a really positive thing. Additionally, there has been studies that demonstrate that playing games can actually change someone's emotional state for the better, leading to increases in positive emotions, and even to the point where students will self-report that video games feel almost like therapy to them as a way to kind of control and regulate and help improve their moods. So that's another positive attribute or impact of gaming. And then finally, again, this gets to what we were saying earlier about the social element of video games. Games can provide social stimulation. They're a way to socialize with other people. They're a way to meet new people sometimes. But on top of it, if you think about collaborative gaming, working together with a team or with other players in the game, it's absolutely an important social behavior. And video games can actually develop pro-social behaviors in the game that kids carry over into their day-to-day lives. And research has demonstrated that this is the case. So just as there are some of those negative intrusive qualities of video games, studies have similarly demonstrated that kids engaging in pro-social behaviors in the game, that collaboration, helping out, helping behaviors, they carry that with them out of the game, and that impacts their day-to-day life as well. They engage in those behaviors after developing them more in the game. So another really encouraging positive impact of gaming on young kids. So thus far, I've talked about the impact of gaming, and now it's time to talk about whether and to what extent games can actually confer real life skills. So there's impacts, changes in mood, for example, perhaps increased creativity. But it's also important to know, again, that research is exploring not only these impacts, but also whether and to what extent games can confer real life skills. And generally, researchers have concluded that games do indeed help to develop and confer real life skills, such as you'll see on the right here, attention, so attention allocation in particular, spatial concentration, problem solving, decision making, collaborative work, creativity, and computer skills. All of these things that will absolutely benefit a person in their day-to-day life, and most certainly attributes that are good to have and skills that are good to have as you are about to enter the workforce and start a new job. So it's not just edutainment games that confer these skills, and edutainment games are those games that are designed specifically to teach, but it's also entertaining games that confer those skills, commercial video games that people play for fun. So both of these types of games, entertainment and edutainment, confer all those different skills that I was just mentioning through the mechanism as failure as a motivational tool, while still preserving the opportunity for success or reward. So let me get into what that means. So with the failure as a motivational tool, as the kid is trying to play a game, you're trying to level up, you're trying to unlock that next stage or whatever the case may be. Most of the time, as the game progresses, it gets harder and harder, and the gamer will fail more and more. But the gamer knows that it's not impossible to beat a level. There's always an opportunity for some kind of success or some kind of reward, extra coins, another life, whatever the case may be, leveling up. So they know that this is the case. And contrary to maybe what one might think, the failure is not actually something that is a discouraging behavior for gamers. They don't react to it super negatively. Instead, they actually use it as a motivation to try to continue. So that failure and sort of the progress of developing and trying to get that next level, get that next success, it's that motivated behavior behind it. It brings the gamer back to the game, try to keep going and keep going. And through that iterative process, that's how those skills that I was mentioning are developed. So it's the failure as the motivational tool. It leads to motivated behavior and ultimately practicing and acquiring those skills that I mentioned earlier. And research has demonstrated across a whole variety of different games that these different skills that I had mentioned earlier have been conferred through these types of mechanisms. Now, recall that I was just talking about edutainment games versus entertainment games. It makes sense, right, to think that edutainment games are games that are specifically designed to teach or train, like I said. It makes a lot of sense that those would confer skills and teach things. And ultimately, while edutainment games are absolutely an effective tool for learning and for teaching, the problem is they sometimes aren't very fun. So again, these games that are specifically designed to teach or train, they're absolutely effective at teaching things like language skills, English as a second language, foreign languages, at teaching school subjects like math or science, and also at teaching really highly specific skill sets. So for example, you might also hear the term serious games. And these types of games teach, for example, young medical professionals how to do a procedure in a simulated way, right? Or there's an example of a game out there that teaches cancer patients how to be kind of more self-efficacious in their own care and be able to manage their case on their own. And they learn that through the video game. So that's that edutainment and serious games coming together. They're effective teaching tools. But as I mentioned, the problem is that they're just not fun. And that brings us to sort of the analogy of the chocolate-covered broccoli. So the problem with edutainment games is that gamers know they're learning and they know that they're not having fun. And researchers liken this to chocolate-covered broccoli. You know the broccoli is good for you. That's the education component. And it's dipped in chocolate, right? So that's the game component. But the thing is, you're still eating broccoli and you know that you're still eating broccoli. And so that's the problem with edutainment games, with many of them, I should say. And a perfect example today is Math Blasters, which has been around for a really long time. It's a great game. It absolutely teaches math skills. I certainly played it growing up when I was struggling with math as a kid. And it's great. It exists absolutely to help kids learn that math in a game setting. But even reading interviews with the developer, the primary focus is the teaching of the math, and it's not about the entertainment of the game. And that's something that some edutainment games, many of them really do suffer from poor production quality and for placing entertainment secondary to education. And kids they're so smart and they are not fooled by that. So this gives us a bit of an opportunity to explore whether entertaining games can actually confer those real world skills as well that I was mentioning. And they absolutely can. There's a whole variety of research out there now that demonstrates that entertaining games, which are designed primarily for fun, absolutely teach and confer real world skills. So you'll see on the left an example of some of these entertaining games, which are commercial games designed for fun. And on the right, some of the different skills that these games can teach, including academic skills, academic subjects as well, different cognitive functions, problem-solving ability, and something called graduate attributes. Graduate attributes are communication and adaptability, and they are contained within a study done by Barr in 2018. So really exciting because those types of attributes are ones that kids need to be successful on the job. And if you return to the left and look at those entertaining games, perhaps Minecraft might be a really good example. It's very popular. You might have even heard of Minecraft EDU, which is now being used in the classrooms to teach a variety of school subjects. But the point of Minecraft is always to be designed for fun, not to be designed primarily for classroom use, although now that's where that's going. So it's really encouraging that all these different games have indeed been used in the education space, even though they're designed for fun, and they absolutely confer those real world attributes that are going to be so successful and imperative for kids to be successful in the job market as they prepare for the jobs of tomorrow. And so then it also became really important to ASA, my organization, to figure out what it was that kids think that they've learned from video games. Research shows that video games have the ability to confer these real world skills, and that's awesome. But we wanted to hear it from the kids themselves. Have they learned something from a video game? And if so, what are those skills? So again, recall that we went to 513 to 14-year-olds in October of 2020. This is a nationally representative sample on gender and region, and we weighted it to be nationally representative on race. And we found overall that nearly 2/3 of students in this sample say that games have taught them imagination, creativity, and design skills, which is exciting. Again, this kind of that theme of creativity running through this presentation. It's something that kids seek out in games, certainly, but it's also something that benefits them and something that they feel they've learned from a video game. Over half, 59%, say that they've learned a physical skill from the game. And again, you think those increased reflex times or reaction times, and then your hand-eye coordination, it makes a ton of sense that physical skills can develop in a video game. 53% of the sample said that they've learned strategic planning and resource management from video games. Again, makes a lot of sense when you're playing games that, make you, ration things and use resources in a strategic way. And then finally, half say that they've learned critical thinking and problem solving skills. And if you recall on the last slide, problem solving is one of the skills that research has absolutely demonstrated that even commercial games can teach kids, which is really exciting. We also then wanted to understand this nexus of, all right, we know that gaming can benefit kids. We know that commercial games can indeed confer real life skills. We know that about edutainment too, but games that are designed specifically for fun, it's great. We know that they can confer those skills. And we know that kids think that they're learning skills from games. So bringing it all together, we really wanted to understand if there was a video game out there that is designed specifically for fun, that's the main purpose, but that would nonetheless give them information about their own real world skills, would they play it? Would they be willing during their entertainment experience to hear things about their real world skills? And we found that young gamers would absolutely play such a game. So again, we asked whether they would play a game designed for fun, but that also tells them about their real world skills. And 91% of our sample said that they would play a game. 52% said that they would be very likely to try this game. And 39% said they would be somewhat likely, which gives us a likelihood top $2 of 91%. So it's a really encouraging moment to be able to see that kids would be willing to hear about their real life skills, even in the middle of their entertaining game experience. So to bring this all together and to provide you with some implications, the time is right to teach skills through entertaining games. Kids want games that are entertaining. They can see through some of the edutainment games that really are designed to teach and just aren't as fun to play. And we know that they were willing to play a game, they'd be willing to try one out that's designed for fun, but that will also help them learn about their skills. And we know that this is going to work because we've seen through research that games prioritizing fun over education can absolutely still educate. And this is really, again, a very encouraging moment. We also know that designing these kinds of games for fun is sure to be a lucrative endeavor, right? So think again about, 97% of kids say that they play video games for an hour a day. They've got all these different devices that they're playing on. They're playing for so many different reasons, which means that, they're going to feed into the multi-billion-dollar gaming industry that's out there. They are absolutely going to be willing to play these games, which is, again, a great moment. And the market is beginning to realize this. So you have games out there like Minecraft EDU, or for example, Kerbal Space Program, and these have high production value. They are designed primarily for fun, but they nonetheless provide opportunities for learning. So that type of game is certain to be lucrative. And again, to kind of bring it all together, these types of games designed for fun, but that will absolutely, teach these real world skills, creates the opportunity for Gen Z, our digital native generation, to prepare for the jobs of tomorrow because we can meet them where they are. So thank you so much for your time today, and I appreciate you joining us. And please look up ASA. We appreciate your time.